Hi everyone, my name is Darrius Barnes, president of MLS Next Pro for Charlotte FC. And thank you guys for joining us for important conversation around unity and Juneteenth, obviously being celebrated on June 19th. So I'm here with Dominic Oduro, Lloyd Sam, U14 coach for the Academy, and Charlotte FC's color commentator. Welcome, gents.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, man, for that intro.
Yeah, for sure. I'll let you guys intro yourselves and tell a little bit about your story and background, just for the viewers to know.
Okay, well, I guess it starts in London, England for me. I played 10 years over there. Had a good time. Charlton Athletic, then Leeds United. So I played all the leagues over there: Premiership, Championship, League One, League Two. Then came over here to New York Red Bulls 2012. Had a good time over there in a prominent team. Played against both of you guys. Had some battles against both of you.
Battles for sure.
I specifically remember playing, obviously, New England first. That was a tough place to go.
Yep.
And that turf was brutal.
But I guess we'll get to our battles. So Red Bulls for 5-ish years, then went to DC United, then ended up in Miami for the last 2 years of my career, then got into commentary, and then ended up in this great place, So that's my story.
Don?
Yeah, how many times have I told this story? Just a kid from Africa, I was able to, I got that opportunity to come to college. I went to VCU, and then from there, I was lucky enough to be drafted. Played in MLS since 2006. Obviously, we guys played each other, We've had our share of, battle. And then from there, I just knew I wanted to coach after. So right when, the playing days were over, I decided to pursue my coaching career, went for my degree, and now I'm here coaching Charlotte FC U14 Academy, which I love. That's what I want to do. So.
Fantastic. Well, welcome, gents. It's a pleasure to have both of you here.
Well, you got to talk about you too.
I know. See, I tried to skip out. Yeah. So my journey here, Darrius Barnes, president of MLS Next Pro, currently grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. So, North Carolina native. And then fortunate enough, I think we all had different paths to MLS, but I was fortunate enough to get drafted in 2009 by New England Revolution. Played 8 years for New England. And then after my time there, played 1 year with the New York Cosmos in the NASL. Transitioned from the game, retired in 2017, worked at the league office for almost 4 years in the corporate partnership space and partnership marketing space, and then transitioned down here last year in the business operations department with Charlotte FC, just helping launch and build the club. So obviously we've all had different paths, and it's kind of crazy where the game takes you, and we'll get back to that. But just want to really talk about, the importance of Juneteenth, kick things off there, and what, Juneteenth means. Obviously, me being here from the States, Lloyd from Europe and in England, and Don from Africa, I think there's different perspectives that we can talk about. But I guess, to kick things off, and no embarrassment if it was yesterday. If it was yesterday, but I think this is why we're having this conversation, right? When was it that you guys found out what Juneteenth was and the importance of the date June 19th?
I think a couple of years ago, to be honest, going to college, like I said, my background, coming to college over here, there were a whole lot of stuff that I didn't know about American culture and American education, but I was able to get my way around it. So I think it was a couple of years ago that I really actually understood the meaning of Juneteenth. Don't get me wrong. I know there was a point in time where slavery was over, when, Black African Americans were free, to do a whole, what they paved the way for what we right now as, people of color to be able to do what we're doing right now. But I think Juneteenth was something that really kind of hit me when they were like, okay, this is the time where this is when so happened. Right. And I think last year when they made it an official holiday, I believe, that was when I was like, okay, all right, so I know about this, but I didn't know much about this whole date. But now it's official, so it kind of like sunk in a little bit. And again, I'm not trying to be ignorant about this whole situation. It's just you knew about it, but you didn't know the day, was going to be this official. Yes, people of color got to embrace it, and then just move forward, and hopefully, we can also pass it on to our next generation.
I would say I'm surprised I didn't find out when I first came over.
Yeah.
It wasn't really talked about that much, was it?
Right. No.
I don't know about. It just felt like, I'm not gonna say I found out around 2020, but it just felt like there was a lot more talk.
Yeah, about
after some of the big tragedies that's happened.
That's when a lot of people found out in
Right.
2020. Honestly, it's it was a result of the George Floyd situation where a lot of people kind of rose to the surface, and it was, felt more cool to talk about what Juneteenth was.
I think I remember wanting to know more about it.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, it was interesting to hear that for 2 years, the news hadn't got to people, right? Obviously, news travels fast these days. But,
Yeah.
but it was interesting to hear that after it came out. How free are you really, right?
Right.
Like, that's one of the big things. It's been a long journey since that so-called freedom, where it's like you still see some of the effects of the original slavery. You know what I'm saying? And as time goes by, you'd say life is getting better and there's more equality, but it's not there where it needs to be all the way, I'd say, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think having Juneteenth awareness sparks those conversations.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about. Obviously, like I said, all of us come from different backgrounds, and there was different points in our lives, and we found out about what Juneteenth was. And for me, growing up in America and learning about American history and African American history, like you always think, July 4th, Independence Day,
Yeah.
You're celebrating the independence of the country, and then you're celebrating the Emancipation Proclamation, and that's when you think all Americans were free, and then you really learn. Because back in high school, I took an African American history course, and one of the teachers, Mr. Walker, was a black man.
Yeah.
He's a very passionate black man, and he said he doesn't celebrate July 4th because his people weren't free at that point in time. And back then, I had no idea. Like I didn't exactly, and it didn't really register until I found out what Juneteenth actually was. When a chord struck in me. It's like this is what he was talking about, because Juneteenth wasn't taught, and I don't know if it's because at the time he wasn't allowed to really talk about it because it wasn't in the curriculum, the educational curriculum.
Yeah.
But now, like when you start to think about it a little bit, it's like, oh, okay, that's why. And so I appreciate that it's become more of a holiday that's celebrated and one that there's more awareness about and more engagement around.
Is it a national holiday? I don't believe it's national yet.
It is now.
Now it is
now.
Yeah, Biden made it a national holiday.
Okay.
So if it's recognized, that's a different thing. It's a national holiday, but there's some schools that recognize. There's some employers who recognize it. But I think the more we talk about it and have these type of conversations, the more awareness will become around it, and it should be a holiday that's celebrated like July 4th. And there's it's a celebration. People were free. Black people were free.
Yeah.
So let's have parades. Let's have cookouts. Let's have all the celebrations like we do a lot of this. Yeah, exactly. American culture. You're all the way invested now.
I love a barbecue.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, but you're right, and I think you nailed it too. If I think it was last year that it really kind of started making some noise. Other than that, it was kind of literally swept under the carpet. So it is good. It is positive that it is out there right now, and hopefully it becomes loud and clear for people to understand and hopefully appreciate that, especially like I said, people of color. So it's good to have days like that out there, and hopefully it brings a whole lot of ideas and for people to like really embrace it.
Yeah, so I guess to build off of that, how do you guys feel about how we can continue to educate the community about Juneteenth and have it be a holiday that really unifies people?
You want to kick it off?
This seems like a harder question.
Listen, let's be honest right now. It's like you're walking on eggshells when you want to talk about stuff like that,
That's true.
Everybody has their own perspective now. Whatever that you say is under microscope. So for me, the best we can do is, keep doing what we're doing right now. Right now, it is out there. Right now, Juneteenth is something that is being embraced by the American culture. I mean, the best that we can do right now is try as much as possible and keep the ball rolling, occasionally just, slow but sure, just preaching out the word out there. Like I said, you gotta respect other people's opinion too. At the end of the day, but so far as we can do the little that we can as Black people, people of color, just to help make noise about this day or hopefully this month. I think that is just also kind of shuffling the way for what is coming out there, because it is going to get bigger as you can see. And we just doing the little we can, just talking to people of color in our community. I use that word people of color because again, I know how it is out there. You want to use certain words, it becomes really scrutinized. Just preach to them, what is it about our forefathers when we were growing up, what happened to them or what they went through, for us to have the enjoyment of sitting right here and just having this conversation right now.
Right.
I think that is something that we can start just putting a word out there, just preaching it little by little.
Yeah, I mean, the importance is kind of what I said already, is to get the conversations going, to say, are we where we want to be?
Yeah.
By talking about where we've come from. And that's, I think, probably the most important part, right? We don't talk about it. Some things are not really addressed. It lets you kind of see where we are. It lets you address. So I think what we're doing today is great, just having this conversation, just putting it out there, because it's easy to sweep things under the rug, right? People don't really always want to face things head on about what's necessarily going on and what needs to change.
Yeah.
For example, so I think that goes into the importance of having the Juneteenth conversation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about awareness, and like you said, having the conversations and representation. Just having the fact that Biden made it a national holiday, I think is a good first step.
Yeah.
But I think with a lot of things in life, you have to crawl, walk, run. That's the approach I use. To Don's point, you got to take baby steps and get little by little.
Yeah. And
I just think that, I think eventually to get there, it's been good to see after, the George Floyd situation in 2020 that, how far we've come. But, I think you recognize there's still more to go. And that it wasn't just, for 2020 that Juneteenth was recognized. Like there's been a actual effort to publicize and broadcast what the holiday is and get that awareness out there. Everyone's not going to be on board,
Obviously.
all at once, and we know that. So I guess shifting gears a little bit, let's take it to the sport that we all love and love to play. I guess as a black person, Black African, Black Englishman, Black American for myself, how'd you guys get involved with the sport? I guess it's different for you guys. It's soccer's always been a global sport, but in the U.S. it was a predominantly white sport when I was growing up. It was a predominantly privileged sport, and for me, it's just something that I kind of fell into. But I'll let you guys kick it off before I share my story. How'd you guys get into the sport as as Black men?
It's funny that you say that in the U.S. was predominantly white and privileged, because South London, where I grew up, it was predominantly Black.
Okay.
That again, the landscape's different, right? You got so many other predominant sports in this country. In England, it's all about football.
Right.
So, growing up, getting into the sport, and you're young, I wasn't even really thinking about, the color of my skin and playing that sport. I was just playing football, right?
Yeah.
And then as you going through it, you start to learn certain stereotypes and things like that. And, coming as a youngster into the game, one of the things I do remember that I didn't really know how to handle was when I was ever with a few other of my Black friends that played for the team, maybe 4 or 5, there would be comments said a lot.
Yeah.
Like jokes. Oh, you guys look like you're going to rob a bank and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it was hard to handle those things. It was like, I was probably too young to really understand how to handle that.
Yeah.
So that's a memory of me coming through, being 14 years old, coming through into the team. Those are some of my memories that went with being a young Black person coming into sport.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Africa, or should I say Ghana, let me be very, very specific. All we knew was just soccer. Like, you see that soccer or nothing else. So we could just roll anything that is round, we're kicking it. It could be a plastic bag, we'll just wrap it, you put socks in tons of socks and then wrap a plastic bag around it, throw it down, and everybody just come through. If you have a ball, you're the captain. I remember having a ball, soccer ball, and I choose my team, I choose my players. And that was it. So for me, coming to America, it wasn't something that as a kid growing up, I didn't see myself in that, me coming to the Western world or whatever. So it was a complete 180 for me, to come here.
What age did you come over?
I was like 17.
Okay.
So I didn't know much about, I think I was just sheltered, in my African ways. So I didn't know much about, how the culture is over here, how people are being treated, how people of color, how Black people, we go through certain things. So I wouldn't say I was ignorant. I was just excited. I was so excited to be here, so I didn't think about it. But like you said, as time went on,
it comes to you.
It comes to you slowly, and then you think about it. There's been times whereby I sit down and I'm like, shoot, like I remember 15 years ago, this happened. I'm like, now that I'm thinking about it, it wasn't what I thought it was. It was something different. But I mean, you get to learn. I think we are still right now in the learning phase, of everything. There are things that happen that sometimes you just kind of scratch your head a little bit, but you still sit down and still absorb it, and try to digest the whole thing. And I think it took me a while for me to digest all those stuff. But I mean, right now, I think we right now are at a point whereby we're able to embrace certain things and still try to see if we can help people understand, things that goes hopefully not south all the time.
Yeah. For me, it was, I kind of fell into the game by luck. I had
luck.
Yeah. I mean, I had a friend that I befriended when I was in kindergarten. Yeah. And his dad ended up being a rec coach and just kind of asked me to come out. I don't know. I couldn't tell you to this day the reason that he asked me to come out. This was 5 years old. 5 years old, got
kick it.
Yeah, exactly. With a rec team and just fell in love with the game from there. But growing up, I was one of one, always the only Black person on the team until I got kind of deep in club days. But I was always one of one, and it's interesting to see just kind of the change and the gradual change of how that progressed. Till I was probably 14, I was one of one, and then I think I had an African teammate from Liberia on my club team, but it was just interesting to hear how the narrative was around him, African players. And we can all talk about just the narrative in terms of how commentators, symbolize Black players and how they talk about Black players as opposed to European or white players. But at a young age, when I think about it now, just always talking about how strong he was and how fast he was and athletic, and not the actual talent that you possess. And I think that's something that's a barrier that still needs to be stripped, and that's a stigma that's placed on Black players. Even myself growing up is always like it's athletic and how high you can jump and fast you can run and all these attributes. But and maybe it's a stigma about, it was American soccer at that time too, and just the American player. But growing up, you start to see the different changes a bit. And I do think we're getting better at it in terms of, obviously the diversity, that's across the league now. So many different countries and cultures are represented in the league, and you're starting to see more young Black players playing the game. But I do think that's a area of improvement. It kind of leads me into the next question. How important do you guys think representation is, obviously, in football or soccer, and I guess sport in general?
It's amazing for kids to even look up to you sometimes, and I say sometimes I'm trying to be modest over here because like when you're playing, sometimes you just be on the street and then the kid will come to you, be like, oh my God, you're my favorite player, I want to be like you, and you can see the dream in his eyes because you made it happen. So they know they can make it happen too. And I think to me that is something that I cherish. When I was playing, like sometimes you see a kid even after games, they'll be scared to come close to you. They'll be looking at your mom like, "Can I get close?" I'm like, "Yeah, come here." Like,
right?
We don't bite. We still. So for us, I think we represent a whole whole scope for kids like that, or especially people, Black people, once they see guys like us, progression moving forward and being more dominant in their sports right now, I think it kind of gives them hope that somewhere along the line or at the end of the day, they can also achieve that aim. We always say the sky is the limit, never, push away a kid's dream of playing or whatever it is. So it's good that we pave well. I believe we have paved the way for some of the kids to come through, and we always have to just encourage them to keep doing that.
Representation, man. I think it's everything, man. Like just seeing it brings comfort. Let's say way back then, if I see a Black person certain times, you just feel like
you give that nod, it's always
I'll be accepted.
Yeah.
And I'll go past sports.
Yeah.
Let's say it's just
you're walking on the
even
street.
on the street. Yeah, it's like that.
Just general areas or places, or when you see another Black person, you just feel a little bit
like, okay, all right, I'm good.
And this is something that certain people that might not be of color don't really understand.
Yeah.
That it's like, you may have been in situations where you felt uncomfortable if you're like the only one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not every day I will talk about something like this, but that's why this conversation is good.
Yeah, I mean, it's important, as a sport, as a culture, as a society. I think it's one of those things we know that racism is going to exist, whether we like it or not. And I think conversations like this are great to have in terms of moving past it and breaking barriers. And just, we really appreciate you guys having this unified conversation about Juneteenth and just your experiences. And I think the more uncomfortable conversations we have and real conversations that we have, people understand experiences that, players like us have gone through and can really understand, what the importance of this day and really unifying people means. So Mr. Lloyd, Sam, Dom, Oduro, appreciate you guys. Of course.
Thank you, Darrius.
Thanks for joining.